Hello and welcome. My name is Katja and this is Obviously Queer, and today's video I will talk about queerbaiting. I will read from a script because I don't have any professional equipment. I will go through the definition as well as the history and examples. I will also talk about 4 of the most common critique against the use of queerbaiting. With this in hand, I will look at the TV show Stranger Things, which has become the topic of the town when discussing queerbaiting. I'll look at Byler as a relationship as well as Will as an individual character. So, according to the Wikipedia, queerbaiting is a marketing technique for fiction and entertainment in which creators hint at, but then do not actually depict, same-sex romance or other LGBTQ representation. This Tumblr account defines queerbaiting as setting up, advertising, or alluding to queer relationship in media with no intention of actually depicting that relationship, in order to capitalize on queer viewers without scaring away the general audience. So we can see here that the definition in itself is pretty simple, but to make it even more simple, I put down my definition anyway. For something to be queerbaiting, the media must advertise itself pre-release to have queer content, or heavily imply in the fiction work that queer content will occur. And this is done without having any thought of doing the baiting canon. The word queerbaiting has through times had different meanings. The word itself can be traced back to the 80s. Then, used by Lawrence Goldlin, the word described homophobic rhetoric in the court of law. Many of my sources comes from Tumblr, which can seem humoristical, but a lot of queer discussions, which has then moved on to professional journalism or academia, arose on Tumblr. Discussions about queerbaiting is mostly taking place in fan-based communities like Tumblr, and therefore Tumblr as a source is very reasonable in this case. Some of the most common examples when discussing this is Supernatural, Teen Wolf, Merlin, and Once Upon a Time. These are mainstream shows which played a lot with the homoerotic tensions between the same-sex main characters, without doing anything about it. In the show Supernatural, in one of the final episodes, one of the characters actually did come out, and then 2 seconds after were immediately killed. Merlin's creators themselves described Merlin as a love story, but platonically. All of these shows has multiple video essays, and there are loud voices on both sides. It was queerbaiting, it was not queerbaiting. One of these shows that I've actually seen is Teen Wolf, and in this case I would say that it 100% was queerbaiting, and therefore this is a very good example of explicit queerbaiting. Teen Wolf was aware of how the ship Sterek impacted their popularity, and they played a lot with this. Here we see, for example, the production posting a video of these two getting cozy together as a marketing technique, and in the show especially they heavily queer-coded styles.
I thought you liked girls.
I do like girls. You?
Absolutely.
Great.
So you also like boys?
Absolutely. Do you?
I said I love you.
Watch this and tell me that he's heterosexual.
One more question. What? Do you find me attractive?
Wait, Scott! You didn't... Am I attractive to gay guys? You didn't answer my question.
Another clear example of queerbaiting is Disney. Every other year, a new film gets marketed as having the first LGBTQ character in Disney. This gets a lot of media attention, and when the media itself comes, it's this. Both Teen Wolf and Disney, I think, show situations where, to come back to the definition, advertise itself pre-release to have queer content, or heavily imply in the fiction work that queer content will occur. In the case of Disney, the definition actually broadens. The queer content is there, but I think we all can see that in these cases it's just bullshit that this kind of representation would get this kind of marketing. That's also queerbaiting. To problematize and deepen the discussion about what queerbaiting is, I've divided the next chapter into 4. Let's deep dive into what this means. The mix-up of queer coding and queerbaiting. Queer coding is adding words, interaction, and themes that queer people will pick up on, but that heterosexual will miss. Not because they want to bait the queer audience, but just because this is what they're allowed to do. The creators or actors want to portray queer representations, but they're not allowed to by producer or censorship in that country. The history of queer coding goes way back, and I will talk shortly about it because it's very important for LGBTQ history and therefore also in the discussion today. In 1930, it became illegal to show LGBTQ representation in Hollywood. This is called the Hays Code. Before 1930, gay representation wasn't like good representation, but it was allowed to be explicit. There were butch women and gay kisses could take place on screen. But after 1930, that became illegal. All homosexual activity or feelings was reduced to subtext, primarily stolen glances, longing gazes, or well-hidden metaphors. The gays could pick it up, but the film wouldn't be illegal. The first film with explicit homosexual representation after this was in 1970. And even long after that, producers refused to portray homosexuality explicit, and so queer coding continued to be a thing. And queer watchers became experts at reading and seeing queer coding. Queer readers continue to stay expert at seeing this kind of queer subtext and reading queer coding into films. This is a divider, I know, but I would say that Luca is an example of queer coding. The film wasn't marketed as being a homosexual film, but if you see that movie as a gay person, that movie is really, really gay. I don't have any facts for this, but I would like to believe that some of the creators, animators, or writers was aware of this and put more into it that was necessary as a treat for the gays. Another example is Hannibal. The creators for this show openly discusses the homoeroticism of the show and how that is a major part of the story. Even though Hannibal never has a gay kiss or comes out, there is a lot of gay subtext in that series, and that was the point, something that the creators are open with. Since this is a Stranger Things video, even though I have no proof for this, I strongly believe that Joseph Quinn queer-coded Eddie without the input or acceptance from the Duffer Brothers. Eddie's character would never be gay in this kind of major Netflix production, but that doesn't mean that Joseph can't play him gay. Reading queer subtext. With a history of queer coding in mind, I think we can see that queer people, even in my age and younger, has become really good at reading queer subtext. Often people who look for queer representation in media find themselves in fandom spaces, internet-based communities where other queer people are looking for queer subtext. And I mean, this constant search for gay representation is, firstly, gay representation in media is still underwhelming and we're thirsty. And two, because finding queer subtext can be fun. Gay shipping culture in fandoms today is huge because it's fun. It's a place for community, it can be creative, and it's a fun outlet for queer fantasies. So if you are an active shipper or if you have a very good sense of reading queer subtext, this means that you put on your queer glasses. This means that you can see queer subtext very well. It also means that sometimes we read queer subtext where there actually isn't put any. Media consumers who spend a lot of time in these fandom spaces like Tumblr, Archive of Our Own, Discord, some places of Twitter, and for example DeviantArt, they get stuck in a filter bubble. When you get stuck in this microcosmos, it's easy to forget that you are in fact in a filter bubble. It's easy in this filter bubble to be convinced that, for example, Starek or Sherlock Holmes or Byler is going to be endgame. It's easy to forget in that bubble that the majority of people aren't looking for queer subtext, they can't read queer subtext, and many directors for major productions are not aware that what they are portraying can be read as queer subtext. I mean, some shows really do queerbait, but a lot of straight directors are just unaware of the double meaning of a longing gaze between same-sex characters. They just see two people looking at each other. Queerbaiting or just bad representation. One of the most common critiques about queerbaiting being overused is when the word queerbaiting is thrown around when the show wasn't queer in the way that you expected or wanted it to be. When a show has disappointing representation or really bad representation, that's an awful feeling, but we shouldn't call it queerbaiting. Earlier in this video, I used Disney an example of queerbaiting, and for me, this is where the line goes. This isn't bad representation, this is queerbaiting, it's non-existing representation. But where the line goes between queerbaiting and bad representation can actually be harder to see than what you first would think. Works that often get brought up as example of this is Riverdale and Killing Eve. I haven't seen those, so I can't use them as examples, but in 2016 I watched The Get Down. The treatment of the homosexual relationship compared to the heterosexual one is really bad. During the 2 seasons, even though they are a couple, they never got to kiss on screen. They got very little screen time, and in season 2 a lot of their scenes were just animated ones. And spoiler alert, it didn't end well for either of them. Was I queerbaited though? No, it was there, and it was explicitly addressed.
You ever been in love? Once. How did it end? It hasn't.
It was just very disappointing that that couple wasn't allowed to be treated in the same ways as the heterosexual couples was. The treatment of homosexual side characters compared to heterosexual side characters is an important discussion, but calling it queerbait when the relationship or character are explicitly gay is taking away some of the value of queerbaiting, is also taking away some of the value with another extremely important discussion, why homosexual side characters get so little screen time compared to other ones. Fandom fetishizing of gay men. Oh yeah, I'll talk about this in this video too. I want to bring this critique up because it is common. And it's extra relevant because this critique is coming from both sides. Some fans mean that the accusation of queerbaiting is really about straight people fetishizing male homosexuality and wanting to see more explicit material in their TV shows. And it's also a critique that is being used from the other side of the discussion. Heterosexuals that don't believe that queerbaiting is a real thing. On Urban Dictionary, a site where everyone can leave a suggestion for what a word means and then people vote it up or down, this is one of the top voted definitions of queerbaiting. A term used by those who fantasize obsessively over the fictional characters Sherlock and John from the BBC show. Writing and reading erotic homosexual fanfiction and fan art, and threatening to commit suicide if the fictional characters don't end up having sex by a certain episode. Often the term is used by teenagers who can't cope with their emotions, their newfound sexuality, and becoming a sane and responsible adult. Valid queerbaiting arguments against major TV shows often get ridiculed and mocked because they get reduced to female M&M shippers who are upset because they won't see any sex scenes from the guys that they think are hot. So this is one of the most common critiques against the use of queerbaiting, and therefore I added it in this video, even though I believe that most of the time this is not the case. To wrap it up, I've concluded 5 questions which we can use when discussing queerbaiting. Did the media advertise itself or imply prior to the release to have queer content? Isn't it just queercoding then? Maybe they didn't have another choice. Are you reading queer subtext where there actually isn't any? Is it queerbaiting or just bad representation? Is this queerbaiting or are we fetishizing gay men? I'm recording this video just after I finished volume 2 of season 4 of Stranger Things on Netflix. So I didn't go into Tumblr until I've watched season 4 volume 1. And I was shocked by how major the Byler ship was. As I'm recording this video, 35,000 people follow the Byler hashtag on Tumblr. And when I read the post, I was both surprised and intrigued by how sure people was that Byler was going to be endgame, and how easily the word queerbaited was thrown around in regards to Byler as a ship. In this video, I will not talk about Robin, simply because Robin wasn't queerbait. She was explicitly a lesbian, she had a coming out scene, and she even got a romantic interest in the end. So we weren't queerbaited. Was Robin's story cute and important? No, absolutely not.
It was shit.
I heavily disliked the lesbian representation in Stranger Things, and I could do a video on whether the representation of Robin was so bad that it could be counted as queerbaiting, but that's for another video. Like and subscribe if you want to see that one. Instead, I'm going to talk about Stranger Things from two perspectives, Byler as a ship and Will Byers as an individual characters. And I will do so by going through these 5 questions and answering them to see if we can get to the conclusion of, did we get queerbaited in Stranger Things? Did the media advertise itself or imply prior to the release to have queer content? I've done as much research as I possibly could before this video, and I'm sure that I've missed things, but I'm going to take up the most common used examples of queerbaiting with Byler as a ship. The posters and promo pictures before season 2. In the promo pictures for Stranger Things season 4, we can clearly see that they paired up Mike and Will, often in the company of the other canon pairs. And on this poster, they look at each other instead of looking forward, something that is only done by the other canon couples. So for sure, with these examples, I can see that they are using Will and Mike in the exact same way as they're using the other 3 canon couples. I will say that it's interesting that they chose to pair up Will and Mike, considering they didn't have that many scenes together in season 3, and when they did, they weren't especially cute. It would be a more logical choice in this kind of promo pictures to pair up Dustin and Steve, which became a very popular duo. Noah Schnapps, who plays Will, is another common used example of queerbaiting. He very often posts things that is Byler related, like this quote, "Season 4 has me shipping Byler over anything, volume 2 now." And as well as this tweet. Both Noah and Finn also have a habit of liking Byler content on social media. The likes from the actors I don't think can be used as proof for queerbaiting. I think liking different kind of fan arts and fan content is a great way for actors to interact with their fans, and it's a great way to show support. Sometimes that will be shipping content and sometimes it will not. And Noah being a Byler shipper isn't queerbaiting in itself. I mean, this tweet, compared to what we got in season 4, it's not great. There was no Byler in season 4, it was just heartbreak. I mean, what do you mean? This is luring queer viewers to watch season 4, for sure. Some of the official Netflix accounts in different countries has a habit of liking or posting Byler content. And this, in the same way that Noah tweets, is by definition queerbaiting. We didn't get any Byler, so you shouldn't lure people in by marketing as if it's going to be Byler. And there are some videos where actors get asked about Byler and answer in a way that is a bit strange.
If you ship Byler?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see what the Duffer's right. But I think people should, ship whoever they want to ship.
This video of Finn is a bit fun, but it's not queerbaiting, and I think it's important to keep in mind that in situations like this, where actors or directors get asked explicit questions about content that is going to occur in a coming season, they're not allowed to say anything. It doesn't matter if the question is Nancy going to choose Jonathan? Is Steve going to die? Or is Byler going to happen? The actors are not allowed to say yes or no. Another common clip that I see is this.
Season, there will be a rivalry between the California and Hawkins groups. Will and Eleven will start a romance and hide it from Mike. Oh my God.
Will and 11 started
What?
and hide
Breaking
it
the
from Mike.
group's main role, friends don't die.
Don't lie.
I mean, lie.
Oh, friends don't die either. Wait a minute. If you've been watching the show, you should know that Will is not interested in Elle. He's interested in someone else in the group.
Yeah, and you'll see soon that he's interested in.
He's very interested.
Yeah.
And this is not queerbaiting when it comes to Byler. It is queerbaiting when it comes to Will as an individual character, but that I will talk about later. So when it comes to the first question, I think you can say that the Netflix account and some of the posts from Noah, I think they knew what they were doing, and I think here that we are moving close to a line on what constitutes queerbaiting. Isn't it just queer coding then? Maybe they didn't have another choice. No. Are you reading queer subtext where there actually is then? The alias beepboop358 has made a slideshow with Byler proof. It is 300 pages. I'll link it below. Also, this Tumblr user, kpeace21, has done a master post of Byler proof. I'll also link that one below. I just want to say that I love these kind of people. You are my kind of people, and I respect you for this kind of art. But with that said, I agree with maybe 2% of what they posted as proof. So when discussing this sentence of the definition of queerbaiting, imply in the fiction work that queer content is going to occur, I think it's important, like prior mentioned, that fandoms get stuck in a filter bubble. I'm a quite good queer subtext reader. I am a queer woman who do this kind of videos as a hobby, but I did not see Byler until I went on Tumblr after season 4. Scenes like this.
Maybe that's how we can stop him. Maybe all of this is happening for a reason.
You really think so?
Yeah, I really do.
It's a tender moment between two young boys, something that is rare to see. And I know that if Will was a girl in this scene, it would be romantically coded. And that's a very necessary critique against the small space that heterosexual have to move in. Romance between same-sex couples and heterosexual couples are built up in very different ways, and that's just the sad truth. So I'm aware that this would be a romantic scene if Will was a girl, but he's not, and therefore it's not portrayed as such. Also, this scene is very popular among Byler shippers.
Hey, well, if we're both going crazy, then we'll go crazy together, right?
Yeah, crazy together.
And it is a very beautiful scene, and as we see later, this scene is important to Will in season 4. When he has the emotional speech for Mike, he says that Mike is one of the people that can see him beyond being crazy.
Sometimes you feel like a mistake, but you make her feel like she's not a mistake at all, like she's better for being different, and that gives her the courage to fight on.
So this is a very moving scene. For me, Byler is an example when fans read queer subtext where there isn't any. I want to make it clear that that in itself is not a problem at all. Queer shipping culture is fun, I indulge in it and I enjoy it, as do many other people. And I believe that a majority of the people that follow the Byler hashtag doesn't believe that Byler is going to be canon. But a lot of people are, and a lot of people throw around the word queerbaiting regarding Byler, and I do think that's a bit of an issue. I want to mention the two most common critiques to why Mike can't be heterosexual. One, that Mike can't tell Elle he loves her because he's not in love with her, because he's struggling with internalized homophobia. And two, that Mike acts distant to Will in season 3 and 4 because he's struggling with his feelings for him. These are theories that arose within a close fandom community. These are theories that no heterosexual and a majority of homosexual did not come to the conclusion of. Earlier I talked about queercoding in relation to the Hays Code in the 1930s Hollywood. One of the things that queer directors could do was have two same-sex characters gaze at each other. The heterosexual would just see a gaze, but the gaze would see it for what it actually was. Longing. In season 4 of Stranger Things, I can see why people would read this scene as having queer subtext. Mike is very clearly afraid to meet Will gaze, and it makes him uncomfortable. Why would he act like that if it didn't mean something? And the thing is, I do think that it means something. I think it means that Mike and Will are becoming different people, and Mike is starting to be aware that Will might be feeling something for him, which makes him uncomfortable. Also, this scene with the slap on the shoulder is an important scene for Will and Mike. They've had one of the most beautifully portrayed friendships of the series, something that was lost in season 3. We're all waiting for them to get together again and understand each other, even though they're different. And this is an important scene because it shows really how far away from each other they come. Mike is struggling with toxic masculinity and he can't hug his friends anymore. I understand why people ship Byler. It's an emotional relationship. And the idea of someone like Mike, a main character in a major production, being homosexual or bisexual would be great representation. It's about time that the gays get this kind of slow burn, will they, won't they romance in a major production. But it never really happens. The scenes in the canon works of fiction, they are, in my opinion, not queer-coded. If Byler would have become canon in Volume 2, that would have been a major shock for the majority of the viewers, and this is something that I think it's important to keep in mind. If shots like this one, or this one, is a reference to Byler being a couple in the end, or this, that Mike is reading a letter with rainbows on it from his girlfriend who he can't say I love you to in front of an open closet with a sign pointing to it, if those are references to Mike being not straight and him and Will ending up together, that would be very fun and clever little subtext, and something that could work in a gay show for gay people where the audience all have very, very good knowledge of reading queer subtext. But the Duffer Brothers are heterosexual, masculine sci-fi nerds. Robin wasn't even queer in the original script. Will is, but Will is coded gay in a way that he has to be in a heterosexual show. If they wanted to show that Mike was gonna be gay, why would they show it in this way? What would they gain from it? What positive aspect would that do for the media and the popularity of the media? To avoid being queerbaited, I think you have to ask yourself, what would the creators win from creating gay content in this way? And if the answer is nothing, then it's probably not gonna happen. This is queer coding done by straights, and this isn't. Is it queerbaiting or just bad representation? As mentioned, I don't think we were queerbaited by Byler in the Stranger Things. I think the actual answers or the heterosexual theories regarding Mike's strange behavior in season 3 and 4, that he couldn't say he love you to Elle because he's scared that he loves her more than she loves him, they make sense, and they make sense for the story that the Duffer brother wants to tell. It fits the mood and the storytelling of Stranger Things. How they handled Will Byers, on the other hand, we'll get to that in just one second. Is this queerbaiting, or are we just fetishizing gay men? The issue with this question, because it does occur, it's a problem that all homosexuality in kids and young teens is seen as sexualizing. Queer kids are never allowed to identify that way or involved in any kind of relationship without it being inappropriate. Where's the critique when Mike and Elle got together at 11 years old? Alright, there isn't any, because they're just in love. It's not sexual when there's heterosexuals. So no, I don't think Byler, queerbaiting or not, shipping or not, it's not fetishizing. So, let's instead talk about Will Byers. Did the media advertise itself or imply prior to the release to have queer content? When it came to Will Byers and his individual journey and his sexuality, that was fucking used. Multiple news sites spread the news that in Volume 2 of Season 4 of Stranger Things, Will Byers' sexuality would be addressed. In the interview that these headlines refer to, the Duffer Brothers aren't that explicit. The full arc of the story hasn't come to pass yet, because we really are in episode 7. It's what we call the end of our second act. So there's a lot more resolution in the story. We're trying to do the same with the characters' arcs, and I would say that applies to Will's arc. So it's going to be much easier to talk about for everyone, the actors and us, once those final 2 episodes have played. Certainly his journey and arc is far from finished. So what the Duffer Brothers is saying here is that it will be a lot more easier for them to talk about Will's sexuality after Volume 2. And for queer people, nothing really changed between Volume 1 and Volume 2. He was unhappily in love with Mike in Volume 1, and he was unhappily in love with Mike in Volume 2. There was no resolution to Will's storyline after Volume 2. There was nothing that changed that made it easier to talk about. It was clear for the gays that Will was in love with Mike after Volume 1, and nothing was addressed more than that in Volume 2. Sure, the news sites were the real queerbaiters here, but the Duffer Brothers, they aren't innocent. The interview mentioned before...
If you've been watching the show, you should know that Will is not interested in Elle. He's interested in someone else in the group.
Yeah, and you'll see soon.
As well as other interviews with Noah and the Duffer Brothers really implied that they were going to make Will's sexuality explicit in Volume 2. So yeah, for sure we were queerbaited here. Isn't it just queercoding then? Maybe they didn't have another choice. Terrible question. No, they could have done it very explicit. Are you reading queer subtext where there actually is none? No, and you guys probably don't need proof, but we're gonna take a look at Will's storyline anyway and see how explicitly that's shown compared to Mike's eventual homosexuality. Will is portrayed as a soft, artistic kid. He is careful and close to his emotions. These are feminine personality traits, and it makes it easy both to read him as queer and also makes him a target for queer bullying.
Will's in fairyland now, right? Flying around with all the other little fairies, all happy and gay. La 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 la.
He's bullied in school and he's bullied by his dad for being gay.
He's a sensitive kid. Lonnie used to say he was queer, called him a fag.
Is he?
He's missing, is what he is.
In the first draft of Montauk, which would later become the script for Stranger Things, one of Will's major personality traits is that he's struggling with his sexuality. So Will's sexuality is a major part of his character and has been from the start. In season 3, when the other boy gets girlfriends, Will is uninterested. He describes it as the fact that he'll never fall in love. He is disgusted by it. He's taken active distance from this obsession and he just wants to play D&D. This can be read in many ways. An undramatic comment that people get into puberty at different times, and this can create clashes in friendship groups. You can read it that Will, being extremely traumatized and suffering from PTSD from a very early age, is holding on to his childhood because it was taken from him. Or 3, that Will knows somewhere already that he will not fall in love with a girl. Or, you know what, it can be all of the mentioned ones. It's also in season 3 that Mike uses Will's feminine otherness as an insult.
You're destroying everything, and for what? So you can swap spit with some stupid girl? Elle's not stupid. It's not my fault you don't like girls.
He realizes that he overstepped, but he doesn't take it back, and Will doesn't argue against him. He's just upset that Mike as well is using this as an insult. It's in season 4 that they really rile up Will's sexuality and heavily queer-coded. The Alan Turning poster, this whole scene, the parallel from liking someone to Will wanting to give Mike the poster, and the longing, pining gazes. And in volume 2, Will does have 2 very emotional scenes, and both of them are connected to his homosexuality. Declaring his feelings for Mike, but pretending to talk about 11.
So yeah, Elle needs you, Mike, and she always will.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And getting an acceptance speak from Jonathan.
And I'll always be here. No matter what. Because you're my brother. And I love you. And there is nothing in this world, okay? Absolutely nothing that will ever change that. You got that?
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable that this is heavily queer coding that Will is gay. I mean, for me, it's like, is it even coding anymore? Isn't it just explicit? But the fact is that as long as it's not said, it is coding. And as long as it's not explicit, people can and are denying it. queerbaiting, or is it just bad representation? As a queer woman, I know that Will is gay, maybe even earlier, but absolutely for sure after volume 1. But the media, they still speculated. I saw so many clips where they described Will's sexuality as mysterious, ambiguous, and unclear. After volume 2, more people got it, but far from everyone. With the discussion surrounding Will's sexuality pre-volume 2, as well as the suppressed queerness in season 1 to 4, and then getting nothing positive out of it in volume 2, that is both bad representation and queerbaiting. Will has been through so much trauma. He's been trapped in the upside down, bullied, possessed, been through an exorcism, suffers from PTSD. He's been let down by his friends, and he's alone in his struggles with his sexuality. He's the only character that literally is getting no happiness. Millie Bobby Brown and Noah Schnapps has both come out and said that the beauty in Will's storyline is that it doesn't need to be addressed.
I feel like they never really address it or blatantly say how Will is. I think that's the beauty of it, that it's just up to the audience interpretation. If it's Will kind of just refusing to grow up, and growing up slower than his friends, or if he is really gay. Can I just say, it's 2022 and we don't have to label things. I think what's really nice about Will's character is that he's just a human being going through his own personal demons and issues.
The beauty is in the non-confirmation, and sure, not having to defy one's sexuality. Changing it or be non-caring about it can be really important representation, but Will's story is not that kind of story. Will calls himself a mistake. He cries when he talks about it to Mike, and he cries again when he thinks about being accepted from his brother. This is a boy who needs to love himself and be loved. And what did they use his queerness for? As a subplot to drive the heterosexual love story forward.
Mike, don't stop. Okay, you're the heart. Okay, remember that. You're the heart.
All that talk about Will's sexuality and that it was finally going to be addressed and resolved, and what did we get? What was resolved? That he has to help the boy he's in love with get the girl? Great resolution, you guys. Fucking nailed it. For the heterosexuals, Will isn't gay yet, and for the homosexuals, Will is just unhappy. So, who's the winner here? Is this queerbaiting, or are we just fetishizing gay men? Again, I talked about this regarding Byler, but also regarding Will. When people say that the gays are forcing a sexuality on Will, or that it doesn't need to be addressed, why does everything need to be said? I just get so tired. We're not in a time yet where people don't have to come out. I come out all the time. That's the truth of the society we live in, and Will lives in the 80s. It's not like everyone would just get that he's queer and he wouldn't need to say it. He will need to say it for his own sake, for his friend's sake, and for all of the fucking homophobes that are watching Stranger Things. I've seen people argue that making Will fall in love with Mike instead of some other random boy is a brave choice, and therefore it will only make sense that Will love him back. I just say, making the gay kid in love with their straight best friend and having it lead to nothing is a cheap trope, and it's cowardly. The way that they treated Will's character is a way for the Duffer Brothers to make Will gay without showing anything that could upset the homophobes. By not making Will say, "I'm gay," homophobic viewers can still watch Stranger Things. I mean, Robin is there, but lesbians aren't as scary as gay men. And by making Will fall in love with Mike and having it be one-sided, you don't have to show a gay kiss or gay happiness or even gays holding hands. Stranger Things is having gay representation at the same time as showing no gay affection and no gay happiness. It's just boring. And I know that we still have season 5 and they can still save it, but regardless of what they do with Will's character and the portrayal of Will's sexuality in season 5, they waited until the last season, which means that they will lose no viewers by making Will explicitly homosexual in season 5. So it's just very cowardly. I really like this show, and I think that I'm worth more than this kind of representation. So to sum it up, I do think that the production used some kind of cheap tricks with promoting Byler because they noticed that it got a lot of likes, but in the actual canon works, I don't think we got queerbaited. The eventual queer coding of Mike is something that only a very small community of gays could pick up, and in this kind of scenario, I'm sorry if I sound harsh, but I do think you have to ask yourself, is it realistically going to happen? But when it comes to Will Byers, both all the advertising before the news articles as well as all the things put into the canon works, 100% we got queerbaited. Byler shipper or not, we got fucked. The homosexual representation in Stranger Things is based on the comfort level of the heterosexuals. Nothing has been shown, but we're still gonna be pleased with it because this is what we get, you know? Cheer up, guys. It's 2022. Two girls with no sexual chemistry can bond over sandwiches for 2 minutes for the show end. The unhappy, closeted, bullied gay teen is having his brother say that whatever's different with you, I will accept it.
On the 15th of July, Noah Schnapps confirmed to Variety that Will is 100% gay. This has still not been commented on by the Duffer Brothers or any other actor. In my opinion, this does not change my thoughts of Will Byers and the queerbaiting in Stranger Things. As long as it's not in the canon works, it's not canon. And I love Noah. He's become one of my favorite celebrities, but less than 2 weeks ago he posted this. First of all, it's the 80s and the kid's a freshman in high school. Let them slowly develop the plot, and when he does come out, it will be really special and real. He says whatever he wants to say in the moment, and it's often something that fits the mood of the fans. Now, when the queer fans are demanding clarification, this is an easy popularity win. It doesn't take away the validity of Will Byers' now confirmed sexuality, but as long as it's just confirmed in this way, it's not a win yet. But of course, I'm glad for Will Byers, you know? Now make it explicit and joyful in season 5.
The fact that Volume 2 got posted on Netflix on the 1st of July, the first day after Pride Month, was a treat to the meme makers of the internet, and I just want to show this. If you've been with me for this entire video, thank you so much, it means a lot. If you like this, I would appreciate a comment or a subscription, it means a lot, and if you not agree with me, let me know. Maybe I can be convinced that Byler was in fact queerbaiting. Love to you all, and I'll see you around eventually.